Hey, Judy.
Lisa, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
You look pretty fancy in your red glasses. I used to think my orange glasses, or they're not orange, but whatever color they are, copper, were pretty exciting. But compared to you, I look dull as I can be.
I just found a new company that has some pretty exciting glasses that I'm going to be purchasing some for myself because, yeah, my eyewear, um, I think it is an expression of how I want to present myself to the world. And I want
Hmm.
to present myself to the world as somebody who has that panache.
Yeah, well, you obviously don't wear prescription glasses,
No,
or you wouldn't be able to have so much fun.
I don't
Oh,
know. I mean, I would just have to, if I had prescription glasses, I would need to have many pairs of prescription glasses.
right, right. You just
That
have
would
to
be,
have the
that actually
prescriptions
sounds
fit
expensive, doesn't it?
a little bit. Yeah, but that's
So,
okay.
but that
You're worth
that
it.
is not what we're talking about today, Judy.
We're sidetracked again.
We are definitely. Today we are talking about boredom
Boredom, being bored, why we're bored, all of
and
the
not
above.
being bored.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So, kind of starting out, we were kind of, chit-chatting a little bit before we were getting going on this podcast, and we were talking about why we would want to talk about this topic.
Hmm.
And I said kind of the nugget or the grain that get kind of started this going was a couple weeks ago. I was talking to Caden, my son, and I asked him if he was ever bored, and he said no. And I thought, interesting. I believe that as children, sometimes we have a sense of boredom. We don't know what we want to do with ourselves.
Hmm.
And we go to our parents or teachers or adults in our lives to fill that void or tell us what to do to fill that sense of
Boredom.
uh-huh, what should I spend my time doing?
Hmm.
And then we become grown ass adults and we have lots to fill our time with. We have jobs and we have responsibilities that take
Hmm.
up 99% of our, well, 90% of our time. And then the rest of the time, we're pretty exhausted. And so we use that time in quote unquote relaxing. But we're
Right.
not bored, we're relaxing. So
Yeah.
now we've come to that point in our lives where we are past being grown ass adults. We are still grown ass adults, of course. But now we have a little bit more time on our hands,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. Yes.
And now we don't necessarily, some of us still have jobs, some of us still have responsibility. We all still have responsibilities, but we have
That's a
more,
given.
we all have somewhat what's called choice time, maybe
Hmm.
leisure time.
Hmm.
And I think we can easily fall into the trap of squandering that time by doing things that don't leave us feeling satisfied.
Well, how many times do you say to someone, or they say to you, I just can't imagine how you get time to have a podcast and to write a
Yeah,
blog and to do this and to do that.
yes.
I would never be able to find that time.
Yeah.
Well, that's a choice. You choose to
Hmm.
find that time. And,
Exactly.
maybe they're doing something or watching a serial TV program on TV or something like that. I guess you have to watch TV programs on TV. But anyway, yeah,
Hmm.
we all have the same amount of time. So
Yes,
really working on eliminating boredom means filling that time with things that have meaning and pleasure and satisfaction.
exactly. And I think there was a something that I posted on Facebook many years ago, and it was some kids in a tent, like at sunrise. It's a cute, cute picture, and it said, "Nobody is ever going to grow up and say that was the best day of TV watching ever."
Uh-huh. I think I
Remember that
remember.
one?
Uh-huh. I
Hmm.
do. And it's so true. You know, there's been lots of difference. I think about what do you want on your, well, I'm probably not going to have a gravestone, but yeah,
On your
those
epitaph. Yeah.
epitaph. Think about what do you want people to remember about you that that you were interesting or that you didn't really have much going on in your life,
Hmm.
Are you finding that your friends are maybe not
Stimulating.
as stimulating or present to want to do things with you? Because maybe you're kind of boring to be with,
Or
and
maybe it's vice versa.
maybe they're
Maybe.
kind of boring to be with.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. So you mentioned a really great quote by our friend. Can you read us that quote?
Our
Eleanor
friend, huh?
Roosevelt. Yeah, I love this lady. I have a book of her life story, and I think she's just awesome.
You know, we were downstairs talking about that. I don't have that one right at my fingertips, but I think I'm going to start out the beginning, the intro to this podcast with
Okay.
that quote. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but it definitely inspired me to look more deeply into the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely thought there are a couple of different ways to look at boredom and how about living our lives to the fullest. And one of those ways is by developing curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
cultivating curiosity in our lives. And that's something that's very fulfilling, it's very interesting, and it is an amazing boredom buster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, anybody can look at the world superficially, but when they really get down to being curious about the things going on around them, life all of a sudden changes dramatically, don't you think?
I really do. Yes. And
Yeah,
so there are three different areas that I wrote down here that I wanted to kind of talk about
good.
in terms
Okay.
of looking at with an eye toward making ourselves more interesting, being having busting the boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, the first one is asking questions, being
Mm-hmm.
someone who is constantly asking questions, not just taking things at as you said, that word was superficial level, but digging deeper, being curious about things, whether it's about how things work, about world events, about history.
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, one of the things that's really fun is just exploring the places around you and stopping and reading the signs. I mean, I think we go up to Door County a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I like to do is, go on walks. And there are signs all over Door County talking about, this was the first settlement house in Door County, and it was established in 1879. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is like, come on, Lisa, let's go. I mean, it's like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
Quit
wait, I want
looking
to read
at
this
that
sign.
hysterical marker and let's go. Right?
Yes, yes, exactly. It's like I want to know about the places and I'm curious about, what happened here and why would somebody take the time, effort, and investment to make a sign about something that happened here?
Those are
And
actually bronze markers generally, and they are expensive, but they're also incredibly informative.
yeah, and so just being inquisitive. And I was remembering back many years ago. This was probably 25 years ago now. My ex-husband and I went on a Boundary Waters experience.
Oh, did you really? How fun is that?
And when we went there, one of the things I packed was a glow-in-the-dark constellation book. And I thought, if there's any place where I'm going to be able to study the stars, it's in the Boundary Waters,
Boundary
which
waters. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are away from everything and there's no city lights. I'm going to be able to see all the stars. And people were like, and it was a kid's book. And when I went to Barcelona, you want to know the book I bought about Barcelona was a kid's book. It's like I didn't want to read the heavy duty, dry versions of things.
Oh,
It
come
was
on, admit
kids.
it. You just want pictures.
I wanted the pictures and I wanted to be fun. And guess
Yeah.
what? By doing that, I knew more than all the other people I was with.
That's the thing. I mean, books for children are written with the sense of of
Curiosity and
satisfying curiosity and
yeah,
being
yeah.
interesting at
Mhm,
many levels. And so
mhm.
I think you're right. I think reading a kid's book about any place you're going to be is like a real, because also they hit the high stuff and it's stuff you
Yeah,
can remember, and they leave the myopic, boring details out of it. Don't you think?
I do. I do.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so being a person who's curious about things is definitely something that busts the boredom.
Hmm.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about was something that we have talked about on this podcast before, and that is exploring new interests.
Hmm.
And people don't do that. I mean, when you and I talk about the fact that we have a blog and we podcast, people
Uh-huh.
are like,
They don't think
"You
I'm
do what?"
telling the truth.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
give them my business card and I say, well, if you don't believe it, tune on in because there we are. No, I
yeah,
think that's
exactly.
true. Like it's some magical thing for superstars. It's not. It's something totally fun and satisfying and interesting. And
Mhm.
I mean, I can come away from doing this podcast with you and feel higher than a kite. I just
Yep.
love it. I love it.
Yes.
Because what we're doing is we're picking our brains and we're getting our brains to think and to express and to hopefully attract other thoughts and expressions
Mhm.
from the people that might be listening.
Yeah. And before we got on this podcast, you and I were, brainstorming about what we are going to talk about. And one of our new interests, one of my new interests came up was calligraphy.
Hmm.
And you pulled out a book that you've had for many years about calligraphy. And it was like,
Hmm.
who'd have thunk? I
Who
thought,
knew?
you
Yeah.
know, one of the things I met somebody new today. And what did I say to her? Oh, she had a pin on her and she said, and it just said, I love books.
Oh,
And I said, you like books? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I have bookshelves all around my bedroom and I don't have a space for one more book. And I said, really? I said, I love books too. And I said, do you have a favorite book? And she said, she likes Different Seasons by Stephen King. And that's
oh.
the four book series where what is it, Lean on Me, that about the kids discovering the dead body in the woods. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with that movie?
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was developed in a movie. And that's one of the four stories in that book. The other ones are very
Ah,
familiar also. But
okay.
I was like, read them too. I said, I love Stephen King. I said, I don't like his horror stuff, but I love his Dark Tower series. And she goes, oh, I mean, so anyway, what I'm getting at is, it was like, she wore this pin just saying, I love books. And
What a conversation starter, right?
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Otherwise, looking at her, I would never think that we would have anything in common. But I said, and then I said, I also love kids' books. Do you like kids' books? And and she wasn't that much into kids' books, but
Boy, I am. I have a kids' book collection. And I know I was telling my sister about this a couple of years ago, and she said, how long have you been collecting children's books? And I said, since I was probably 25. And she said, I
mhm,
never knew that about you. And I mean, we've been sisters for a long time. So I was really
forever.
surprised forever, ever since we were born. And I mean, I just think they're so much fun. And I
Mhm,
really like the sketches, the pictures, the way the pages are put together. They're
mhm.
very visual.
Yes. I just got for Christmas a kid's book. It was called, what is it? The Boy, the Horse, the Mole, and the Fox.
Uh-huh. I think so.
And it's a beautifully illustrated and thoughtful book about a boy and these four creatures that kind of are just walking through life together and have some very philosophical, short little convos.
I
And
love books like that.
yeah, I have it on my nightstand and I've probably read it 3 times. And it's just like,
You got that for Christmas, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Did
You
I give
probably
you
gave it
that
to
for
me, right?
Christmas? I don't remember. I gave you books for Christmas. I don't remember if
Right.
that was one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have books by my nightstand and in my bathroom and all around the house. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I love books.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to my son Matt on the phone. He checks in with me usually sometime during the day, and he was saying he's in the golf industry, and I said, "How's your week going?" And he said, "Whoa, it's really a wild one with all that's going on in golf." And I went, "What's been going on in golf?" And he said, "Mother, have you been under a mushroom? What you don't know?" And he started telling me the story about Scotty Scheffler getting arrested
Busted.
because, yeah, and all this, and how he actually got thrown in jail, and
Hmm.
he had 4 charges against him, and one of them was a felony. And all because he was trying to go around an accident to get into the golf course because he was playing in this major tournament.
Yeah.
And the cop that arrested him had no idea who he was. I mean, he's the number one golfer in the world.
Yep.
And Matthew said, "Mom, you usually keep up so much better than that." And I said, I'm gonna have to check into this because that is not like me. You're absolutely right. And I thanked him for bringing me up to date because
Hmm.
golf is usually something I'm pretty much in tune to. But I thought, boy, it's easy when you get busy doing stuff that you forget to keep up to date on even your interests. It's easy to get into I got caught not paying attention.
Well, that's the kind of the third thing I wanted to talk about was staying informed.
Mhm.
And I think there is there's a careful balance with this one because right now with the whole political scene and everything, I
Yes.
don't want to get deep into that.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to be aware of what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. I want to know what's going on between Israel and, um, Hamas and
Palestinian. Mhm.
Palestinian and Gaza and what's going on there. I want to know what's going on in Gulf. And, one of the things I like to do is listen to National Public Radio because I
Mhm.
like to get my news from I've sent out a while ago it was a pyramid that talked about news stations that are lean toward the right, news
Mhm.
stations that lean to the left, news stations that are more neutral, and ones that are very opinionated.
Mhm.
And the one that was the most neutral and the most neutral and neither right nor left, a couple of them that I remember was National Public Radio and the BBC. Those
Mhm.
were two that were at the top of that peak in the
Mhm.
center. And so one of the things I like to do is just listen to the news like 15-20 minutes once a day. That's
Mhm.
about all the news I need. You kind of get the 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 highlights,
Well,
the
it's a bit like a soap
headlines.
opera. If you watch it any more than that, it just keeps repeating and repeating and
Yeah.
repeating. So,
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
probably a good number of minutes because you get an overview, but you don't get sucked in.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you feel like you're kind of okay, I know the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it's not gonna make or break my day. I
Hmm.
can still go about living my life, yet be an informed individual. So when my son says, "How about what's going on in the golf world?" You don't sound like an idiot.
Now,
Or
he
you've
said
been
to me,
living under a
"Mom, that's just
mushroom.
not like you. What's wrong?" And I thought, I don't know. That isn't
Mhm.
like me, and especially on Sundays, there's almost always a major tournament, and I usually turn
Yeah.
it on at least for a half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe while I'm having my lunch or something, and kind of get up to
Mhm.
date. But I blew it today, so thank
Well,
goodness I had him to keep me up.
and when you stay up a little bit on the news and current events, it makes you sound like you're with it. You're engaged. You're
Hmm.
somebody who's knowledgeable and educated.
Hmm. Hmm. Because
So,
educated people, I mean, back in the day, Michael used to read 4 or 5 newspapers. Well, you don't have to do that nowadays because you've got the internet. You can
mhm,
really get together with news much more easily than you used to. And
right.
I think it's worthwhile. I don't think it's worthwhile to become um, fanatical about it, but I think you need to know what's going on in the world.
Well, I mean, and that's an interesting, something that could be discussed, when you said fanatical about it, I mean, maybe that is somebody's passions. Maybe that is their interest, that they would want to pursue that at a deeper level. It doesn't happen to be our interest,
Right.
or my interest, at
That's a good
least,
point. That's a really
you
good
know?
point. Yeah. No, I
But if
agree with
that's what you want to dig more into, and that's your new interest that you really want to explore, and you want to pick up a cause, and you want to, you know, um, help a candidate because you're feeling passionate about something, that's not boring.
no,
That's
that's
living your
true.
life to the fullest. That's engaging your community and changing things for, for the better, um, for both yourself and
For the
for
world, for
the
other
people that you
people,
love. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. I went back to work recently, and one of the things I really enjoy is I was really missing that people interaction during the day. I used to make comments on our podcast about, I wish my dog could learn to talk, and that just
Yes.
wasn't happening. But it's so nice to have people coming in and sharing news about different things. And what's really interesting is I had a man walk in the other day, and he said, "Well, Judy, how have you been?" And I went, "Hi." And I went, "Oh my gosh." I think on Friday, I had like 5 people that knew me by first name and remembered me from other venues that I've been in. And I thought that was so cool to kind of reconnect,
Mhm,
with
mhm,
people.
mhm.
And they're not people I would really necessarily call up on the phone or, invite over to dinner, but they're people that we always had good conversation. And so, getting back into the work world, it was so fun to have that reconnection.
Nice. And I guess that's kind of where I want to kind of wrap up our discussion about this today, is one of the things that I've brought up in the past
Mhm.
that I keep thinking about. You know, in the past, I've talked about how it really bothers me when somebody retires
Mhm.
and you ask them, "So, what are you going to do now that you retired?" And they'll
Mhm.
say, "Take care of the grandbabies." And I've thought to myself, why does that phrase grate against me so deeply? And I guess today I was able to really kind of put my finger a little bit more specifically on my feelings on that subject.
Okay.
And and that was, when somebody has had a career and they've been doing things and being interesting and having conversations about what they're doing in their lives and what they're thinking about things, that's interesting. Now, if you stay home and you're taking care of the grandbabies, and I get together with that person who's doing that, most of our conversation, what it's going to be
The grandbabies.
about the grandbabies, and about
Mhm.
what the grandbabies are doing and learning and growing, and what they're interested in, what they do together, which is lovely and it's exciting and it's so special. But the person who's playing and teaching those grandbabies, they're not talking about themselves anymore. They aren't the
Mhm.
ones who are learning and growing and changing and developing. They're talking
Well,
about, you know,
I know what you're saying, and I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody who has decided that that's what they wish to do. Maybe they've
mhm,
been involved in the career and they've had all that on their plate and they just don't want to do it anymore. I get that. I think that's fine. However, I still encourage people to save some time in their day to
mhm,
develop who they are to the
mhm,
fullest and to have something, you don't have to be taking care of grandbabies 24/7. There are other outlets for your creativity. And that'll
mhm,
make you more interesting to those children that you're raising as well. Uh,
mhm,
I remember this. It's so interesting when you said this, you're telling this. My mom absolutely worshiped my husband, or her
mhm,
husband. And he made all her decisions. He told her how to vote, all these kinds of things. And I really did not think, this is terrible to say out loud in public, that my mother was very bright. But
mhm,
then after my dad passed, my mother came to live with me, and she lived with me for 13 years. And I found this incredibly bright, incredibly smart woman. And I thought to myself, where have you been all my life? I mean, she had a lot going for her, but
Mhm,
now she was actually looking at her interests and developing those. And I thought, well, at least she had the time to do that. She had a
mhm,
time when she could focus on herself. And I think her life with dad and our family was very rewarding to her. But I also found her extremely interesting when I began to learn who she really was. And that came out to play.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. So really that's what we're talking about today, Judy, is not waiting until, not waiting for the future to let yourself bloom, but really allowing and eh, d- allowing and encouraging yourself to bloom now and to
I had
become
to, I,
who.
uh-huh. I had to laugh when Caden was saying, well, I'm going skydiving for my birthday and we're going to do
Oh
that in
yeah,
August. And he said, so who's in? And I said, I am. And he looked at me so funny and he said, okay, Judy's in. And I thought to myself, he doesn't know that this has been something that I've been wanting to do all my life. You girls have heard the stories, but not he. And I thought,
yeah. Hmm.
yay, I kind of shocked that little guy all right off his tail.
That little guy.
Yeah, no, not little guy, but what's fun about Caden is he's at that point. He's not really a kid anymore, but he's not totally an adult, and he's so full of life and
Youthful
interests. And
enthusiasm.
oh, I love it. I just love it. I wish he'd bottle it and share it with me.
Well, he is. He is. I don't think you can buy it. You just have to spend some time with him. But yeah,
Hmm.
he's definitely game. And what's so fun is back in, oh jeepers, it was 14 years ago, I think, when Craig and I went skydiving. And Caden was just like 4 at the time. And it's like, do you want to go skydiving? And like, no. But yet he and his brother would lay on their swings in the backyard, and they'd turn them around, and then they'd pull up their arms and their feet, and they go, we're skydiving. And and the swings would unravel. And
So you were an
so it's always
example
been,
for him.
yeah. And it was like, definitely. um I, I not only was an example then, but I want to continue to be an example of what you can be and who you can be, even because so many people aren't continuing to learn and grow and develop. They,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, fall into boredom, fall into not only, you know, being bored, but becoming boring.
And
And
apathetic and not having an opinion and all of those things that make a person, you know, it, um,
an interesting person.
an interesting person, a person with something to share and something to give the world. I think that is so
Mhm.
important. This is a
Exactly.
pretty special place, even though sometimes we feel like it's messed up, but the more we know about it, the better, I think.
Exactly. Think so too. So with that, Judy, I encourage people to cultivate curiosity and see
Absolutely.
where it takes you. It can't hurt, can it? I don't think
I,
so.
I don't think so. I don't think
No.
there's anything, it won't kill you and it won't be bleeding. So cultivate.
Well, there is that phrase, curiosity killed the cat. Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a
but the cat
bad
has
one.
9 lives, what difference does it make? He can spare one. This has been fun.
Mhm.
Do we have to go already?
We do.
Okay.
So, love you, Judy.
Till next time. Love you too.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see. Yeah.